All right. Before we move on, just want to thank the fans again for Saturday night in Williams-Brice Stadium. That was awesome. It's pretty cool to see all the people on social media that experienced game in Williams-Brice for the first time, what they thought of it, and they're exactly right. So we appreciate hosting the Mississippi State contingent and appreciate how blown away they were by the environment. So thanks to everyone that creates such a great environment every time we're in that stadium. I heard Peter Burns on SEC Network yesterday morning say that environment in Williams-Brice Stadium isn't one of the best home field advantages in college football. It's one of the best home field advantages in all of sports, and he's exactly right. So we appreciate the fans. One of these days around here, we're going to have a day game, and when we do, we need the same thing. So it's not just at night here at Williams-Brice Stadium. It should also be during the day as well. We tell our players all the time, it doesn't matter what time we play, morning, afternoon, night, and our fans need to have the same mindset whenever we do have a day game around here, which apparently will be never either. But injury-wise, Nye Manziel, who's a young offensive lineman for us that transferred from Mercer, he suffered a season-ending injury in practice on Sunday night, so he had surgery yesterday. So that's an update. He'll be done for the year. That's tough because that now means that 7 offensive linemen that aren't practicing for us right now. When you talk about Case and Henry, Ja'Kai Moore's practicing. He's just got a banged-up shoulder. He'll be fine for Saturday, but he didn't practice today. Chase Swigert is not practicing right now. Marquis Anderson, we've already talked about. Ryan Brubaker's out for the year. And then Jalen Nichols is still out long-term as well. So when you're missing 7 offensive linemen, that drastically affects the way you're able to practice, the backups, the scout teams, all that stuff as well. So tough situation. Hate that for Nye. Hope he can get better soon, and he will be back next year better than ever. Juice Wells will not play this week for us. He will be out. AB is back. He practiced today. And like I said, Ja'Kai Moore's got a little bit of a banged-up shoulder, but should be fine on Saturday night. Got a big challenge in Knoxville. Always enjoy going back there, as I've told you before. Spent 3 years in Knoxville. Really loved my time there. Proud graduate of the University of Tennessee Sport Management program. Got a master's degree from there. Shout out to Buck Jones and Rob Harden and the Sport Management program there in Knoxville. Had a great 3 years there. Learned a lot working for Philip Fulmer, and really enjoyed my 3 years there. We have a big challenge on Saturday night. One, we know it'll be a hostile crowd in Neyland Stadium that we're going into. That's what you want to come. That's what you want to play in and coach in, is environments like that, and that's SEC football. So we're excited about that aspect of it. Coach Heupel's done a great job with this year's team. Obviously a fantastic season last year, and they've picked up right where they left off. Essentially, they've had one bad half of football, and that was against Florida a couple weeks ago. But other than that, they've really been operating at a high level. Offensively, the quarterback's tremendous, can make every single throw on the field. Took the first play of the game on Saturday and ran for about 80 yards as the quarterback on a run, so he can certainly run. Offensive line, a lot of those guys return. They brought in 2 guys from the transfer portal that are starting for them and are really good players. Wide receiver group is deep. I've added to the tight end core, starter return, brought a transfer in that's a really talented young man as well. Running backs, they're deep. They got 3 running backs that can all go. They've all got great vision, speed, burst, quickness. That'll be a challenge for us, without a doubt. They are the leading rushing offense in the SEC. So last year against Mississippi State, or last week against Mississippi State, we faced the number 1 rushing offense in the conference. This week we get to do it again, and they ran for 303 yards against Texas San Antonio Saturday, and this isn't like they pop some runs and run their yardage up. They're handing the ball off 30-plus times a game. So we've got a big challenge on our hands to stop the run this week as well. Defensively, their defensive line is very, very active. Same thing with the linebacker crew. They can rush the passer. They lead the conference in sacks, so it'll be a big challenge for our offense. not allowing them to be as disruptive as they've been all season as well. Athletic linebackers, and then a veteran group of defensive backs on the back end at corner and safety. And then special teams, they're really, really good. Punt returner averages 21 yards a return, not a long of 21. He averages 21 yards per return this season. He can make people look silly really, really quick. So we've got to do a great job covering punts this week when we punt. They lost their specialist, but they brought in a transfer kicker that's tremendous, and then they've got a punter that can actually punt with both legs. So that will be a challenge for our punt pressure team. When he punts, he can kick right, or kick with his right leg, or he can kick with his left leg. And he also does it rugby style, rolling. So that'll be a big challenge for our guys. They play really, really hard on special teams. We pride ourselves on being disruptive, and so do they. Their effort is tremendous on special teams. They block kicks, they return kicks, they block field goals. They're well coached. They know what they're doing. So this is a veteran team that we're playing, junior, senior-led team. I feel like I say that every single week with the teams we're playing right now in this league, but it's the truth with them. We've got to have a good week of practice and need to go up there and do our best to play well on Saturday night. But our guys are excited about the opportunity, and another SEC Saturday night game, prime time, under the lights, going to be an amazing environment. Looking forward to it. Questions?
Shane, appreciate the injury update. With a couple more, Spalding and Fortune and Bradley Dunn. I think he might have been out a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Spalding is fine. Fortune had a banged-up knee last week. He practiced today. He's fine unless something changes between now and then. And, yeah, Bradley Dunn's got an ankle sprain. He would be out this week also.
You've been preaching since the beginning that X was going to have a huge year, but did you even foresee him leading FBS in yardage and breaking Alshon records in front of the guy himself?
No, I did. I mean, I thought he would have a big year, but the year he's had statistically to this point and what he just continues to do week in, week out, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily shocked because I see how hard he works, and I've always known he's really, really talented. I mean, I've always known he's a big body that can run, and he's taken it to another level this season. Proud of him, and hopefully he's just getting started.
Shane, obviously the game here last year, big moment, big win for you guys, and you hope you can build on it. Sitting here 10 months later.
Feels like 10 years at times.
I was going to say, have you seen that growth in part because of that victory last year and what it started?
Yeah, I think there's signs of it. Certainly, not that we weren't a confident team before that game, but I think certainly the confidence that we took out of that game led right into the next week against Clemson. Didn't win the bowl game, but gave ourselves an opportunity to, and then just the expectations that we have going into this season. That was a tremendous team that we played last year in Tennessee here at home, and we played obviously really, really well that night. And then I think everybody got to see the Spencer that we had been seeing in practice. He put it all together, and he's only taken off, since that game as well. So certainly there were a lot of things that came out of that night. It wasn't like all of a sudden like we weren't confident and then the flip switched because or the switch flip. You know what I mean? It wasn't like all of a sudden it was from that game, but because we were confident going into it and had some big wins before that. But I think when you just put it all together, national television, people that were here, the whole nation saw it, certainly kind of took things to we were able to take another step that night.
Shane, you're obviously really high on bringing Dowell Loggins in this offseason. Through 4 games, just what's that process been like with streamlining and him installing a game plan and tweaking it over the course of a week? How pleased are you with him and just the job he's been able to do over the first month?
Yeah, very pleased. First of all, it starts with Spencer and the way that Spencer's playing, and Dowell has a lot to do with that, just the relationship that those two guys have and the way that they've connected and work together. Dowell, obviously, with the fact that he's been a coordinator in the NFL. His understanding of just offense, defense, every position on offense has been really good too because, he understands what he wants at the receiver position, the offensive line position, the tight end position, quarterback, running back, you name it. So he's got great feel for all those positions, and I think he's done a great job of putting our players in positions to be successful. We have a lot of carryover each and every week. We have new game plan specific things each week, and I think he and the entire offensive staff have done a really good job putting a plan together each week that gives us the best chance to be successful based on the team we're playing, but then also, what we do well also. New seat.
Yeah, I had to plug the computer in. That Tennessee game last year was, arguably the biggest win of your career. I mean, was there any lessons for you as a coach that you took away from that game that have sort of helped you in that Clemson game and starting off this year?
Good question. No. If we ever storm the field again, make sure somebody's in charge of my children because we lost my kids that night, like storming the field. So that's like a personal thing. Make sure between my wife or I, but one of us knows where the kids are. They had a hell of a time out there on the celebration, but it was a little stressful not being able to find them for a while. No, I think for us that week it was probably, if anything, we had come off the week before, obviously a really disappointing performance to say the least against Florida down in Gainesville. And it was really that week coming here and, the perception that we just completely just threw the playbook out and just ran 5 plays to simplify things is not accurate. Did we streamline things that week? Yes. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson is, get what your guys can go execute. And then at the end of the day, it just comes down to your players making plays. And we ran a lot of the same plays. Lots been made. There was 2 third downs in the third quarter, I think, 3rd and longs that we threw the ball to Juice, literally the same play. The last touchdown in that game that Jalen Brooks scored, a little crossing route, and then he turned up on the sideline, was literally the exact same play that we ran against Georgia on the 4th down, about the same field location, that the ball was a little bit behind the receiver and they broke it up and they got the ball back on a 4th down. So it was a lesson, not a lesson, but just a great reminder that at the end of the day, it just comes down to your players making plays. And our guys that night, offensively, there were the catches that our guys made, the plays they made. Defensively, we played basically man coverage the whole night. And, whether it be a starter, whether it be a guy like when Nick Eman got kicked out of the game and Peyton Williams had to come in and he had a critical pass breakup on a 3rd down or 4th down on a little slant route. Just when your number's called, it's about making plays. And that was a great reminder for everybody that night. It's not always about scheme. It's about getting really good players and just getting them to play really well. And that's what we did in that game last year and then carried over the next week to Clemson. Great win last night, too.
Shane, I asked Al this last week about Mario Anderson, and now because he had a big game, naturally there's going to be a lot of people that'll say, why didn't he, get in there a little bit earlier? But as we've seen in the past with other Division II transfers, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to come along. Can you explain what the process has been like for Mario and what you've seen since week 1?
Yeah, I think he continues to get better and progress. There's no question about it. He did a really nice job in blitz pickup the other night. Really, all of our running backs did. Him and DK. I mean, you look at the first touchdown that we threw to Legette. They brought pressure in the line, and I think it was the carry on. Got a little bit of leakage, and he sat in there and firmed up the pocket for us to throw the ball. And then Mario did a nice job of that as well. So the blitz pickup, it's not as simple as just sit back there and if somebody comes, you take them. I mean, your eyes can be here or there. You may be responsible for 4 guys on a play. So learning that, the pass catching out of the backfield, he's just continued to work. Frankly, couple of the games where we got behind, North Carolina mainly, it turned into a passing game and not really I shouldn't say not his thing, but from a pass protection standpoint, we had some other guys in there in that instance. And then the other thing, too, is let's make sure that we're not like make sure we realize that DeCarrion Joyner has done some really good things as well. DeCarrion Joyner had a touchdown run the other night where we completely whiffed and didn't even block the linebacker on the goal line. And he had to lower his shoulder and run through arguably one of, if not the best linebacker in the SEC, unblocked. And DeCarrion got under his pads and drove that guy into the end zone for a touchdown because for some reason we decided not to block the front side linebacker. And on the backside, we let a backside penetration come through and where we should have been hitting the backfield. And DeCarrion took a play that was broken because we didn't execute properly and turned it into a touchdown. So DeCarrion's done some really good things as well and will continue to the rest of the year as he gets more and more comfortable at running back. And then Mario obviously gives us an added element with his physical style of running and what he did Saturday night also.
Hey.
Hi.
So with last year's major blowout against Tennessee, that must be a lot of pressure to try and replicate that and follow that up this year. So what's the plan with so many major key players out this week? How do you plan on replicating that energy that we need to succeed?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely not any pressure to go perform like we did last year. For us, it's, last year I told the team after practice today, and it's good to see that Pup repeated it in the press and here a minute ago, was that, we were successful last year against Tennessee because of the way that we practiced and prepared during the week. And we're not even, there's a lot of players that we may have out this week like Juice Wells, but there's a lot of players that played in that game that are playing this Saturday night as well. They had a lot of players that aren't playing this year that were in that game last year, or they got a lot that did play and are in this game. So, last year is behind us. Just like the year before, we went up there and got absolutely smoked in the first half, and that had nothing to do with last year's game. And last year's game really doesn't have anything to do with this year's game. It's two different teams, and no pressure at all from our standpoint. All we're worried about is having a great week of practice and preparing the right way, and then giving ourselves an opportunity to go up there on Saturday night and hopefully perform well in what we know will be a rocking environment.
Hey Shane, when Xavier signed with you, what type of player did you think you were getting, especially when it comes to potential? And was there a moment after you got him here in practice when you thought that, hey, maybe this guy can be special, or was it after he got into a game and actually did it?
Legette, he was here when I got here, so credit Coach Muschamp for that signing. When I got here and saw him, my first impressions were just big-bodied guy that's just a rugged dude that can do a lot of things. And from a special team standpoint, from an offensive standpoint, when you've got that size and the physicality that he plays with, it shows on the field. And then obviously last year he did some good things at receiver. He did some amazing things as our kick returner, gunner on the punt team, things like that. He just continues to work and get better, and you've seen it kind of all come together this year in a lot of ways.
This offense had obviously the 298, 99-yard drive Saturday. You got 5 first-quarter touchdowns this year. In your opinion, what is the key to an offense starting fast? What separates the ones that do, the ones that don't in your football experience?
It's a good question. If I had known we wouldn't have gone down 28-0 in Knoxville 2 years ago, we wouldn't have gone down whatever it was to Florida last year, whatever it was to A&M 2 years ago. I wish I knew. Good question. It's the preparation that you have during the week. It's not as simple as just turning it on Saturday morning and going to play. For us, it's one, how you prepare mentally and physically during the week. So one, you're ready to play when the game starts. 2, it's from a coaching standpoint, we have openers like most teams do, not necessarily that these are going to be the first 7 plays and we just run these 7 plays, but we know, okay, this is going to be the first play of the game, and then we expect this will either be a 4-yard gain, 10-yard gain, whatever it might be. This will be the second play. The first third down and short, this is what it is. The first third and medium, this is what it is. The first time we're on the 3-yard line, this is what we're calling. And then we rep all that on Thursday and Friday, and then depending on the time of the game on Saturday, we may or may not have a walkthrough where we do it again on Saturday, but it's something that we talk about 24, 48 hours leading up to the game, certainly 48, sometimes 72 hours leading up to the game, and just making sure that mentally and physically we're doing the right things during the week to allow us to execute at a high level when the game starts. We've just got to be better. We got to be better starting the second half. Is one thing that we've talked about. We did a good job of it. Saturday, scoring on offense on the first possession. But if you look at the North Carolina game, we got stopped on the first possession. They went down the field and scored. Georgia, we got stopped. They went down the field and scored. We got stopped. They scored. Mississippi State the other night, we scored, but then I think they came right back down the field and scored. So we got to start the second half better, particularly on defense. Defensively, that's one thing that we've talked about, doing a better job. Sorry, Matt.
You're good. You talked about it a little bit, but the guys have really emphasized the message you gave them about what it took the week of practice last year leading up to Tennessee. Just what was that message to them in team meetings?
Competition, that going back, talking about the week before, we weren't as bad as we looked against Florida, was the message last year. 2, the opportunity that we had in front of us with Tennessee and Clemson, back-to-back top, whatever they were, 5-6 teams to finish the season. And that really the way that Tennessee played defense, the way that we played defense, or the way that we knew we were going to play defense that week, that essentially it was going to come down to just a bunch of one-on-one plays, receivers and DBs versus receivers, and O-line versus D-line. And essentially it's all about competition and prepare the right way, and then let's go compete. And then the other thing, too, was making sure our guys understood that our mindset, the way that we were going to coach that game and play that game, was all about attacking. And I said it last year in the post-game press conference after the game. Like, you're not going to beat Tennessee. They're too explosive, and they're aggressive on defense. They're aggressive on special teams. You're not going to beat them ever just being tentative and passive with the way that you play and coach. You got to go attack, and I'm sure they would feel the same way in the way that they play and coach as well. And that was our big message last year.
Hey, Coach, got 2 questions for you. The first, you said a couple weeks back to make sure you're paying attention when the OL starts playing their what's off. Is it time to start giving them their flowers?
They've had one good game. We're not ready to hand them the Joe Moore Award for the greatest offensive line in college football. Have they made some strides and have they improved? Absolutely. And is there a lot more that they can do better? Absolutely. And they'll be the first to tell you that as well, whether it be technique things that weren't clean the other night. I just talked about a goal line play where we didn't even block the linebacker. There's a lot that we need to get better at. We gave up a sack the other night because we, didn't pick up a blitz the right way. But have they made progress? Yes. Am I proud of them? Heck yeah. Do I think we've even come close to scratching the surface of how efficient they can be up there? No. And they've got a big challenge this week as well, like I talk about with Tennessee and how disruptive they are along the defensive line.
And going off Tennessee's defense, that's a team that specifically, at least on offense, likes to use the width of the field with their receivers, put defenders in space. What kind of challenges does that present to such a young and partially banged-up secondary?
Yeah, it's tough. One, they got really, really good players. It's the body types at receiver. That's just, you got bigger bodies like McCoy, who's just a physical dude out there, and then you got smaller slot receivers like Squirrel and length, like number 1, Thornton, that transferred from Oregon. I mean, you got a lot of length out there, all those guys out there. So it's length, it's quickness, it's size, it's physicality, and then you get out there in space. That's tough to handle. 2, the tempo, they're spread out. They use sideline to sideline. So you've got to, 1, figure out where they are and get lined up. 2, you got to get the call from the sideline. 3, you got to get lined up and ready to play, which is easier said than done. And then we've got to do a great job of tackling. And that's one thing that we did a good job of last year. Like, they're in the passing game, they're going to get their completions. You've got to get them on the ground. You can't let a 10-yard route turn into a 60-yard touchdown. And but it's a challenge. But our guys are excited. These guys, Nick, DQ, Sell, OD, Jalen obviously wasn't here last year, but we really like our defensive back group, and I'm excited to watch them play on Saturday night. They didn't have the game they wanted last Saturday against State, and certainly they're motivated to get out there and play better this week.
Talked in the past about Spencer's ability to use his legs being kind of underrated. But
yeah.
When he took off on that, first play of the fourth quarter, said he improvised. What was your reaction? Can you share what you said?
I think I said on the headphones, don't get hit, don't get hit, don't get hit, don't get hit, don't get hit. Was essentially, I think, what I said, and that's probably what I was thinking. But he's got a good knack he's comfortable in the pocket. He's able to keep his eyes downfield, and when he sees an opening or everybody's covered, he's got enough, wiggle, make you miss, savvy out there to be a weapon with his legs. And we're never going to tell him not to run. Spencer's a tough kid. You've seen it with some of the plays that he's had. Missouri last year, where he basically dove into the end zone knowing he was going to get the heck knocked out of him, and he still did it to get a touchdown. He's a competitor and is a tough kid. We just need him to be smart so he doesn't take more hits than he needs to.
Then he mentioned he needs to slide on that third down he picked up. Did Did y'all say anything to him when he came off the field, or is that something that you don't?
I didn't. Dow may have on the offensive headphones when he came off. Usually once we come off the field offensively, I'm either talking to Pete, getting ready for the kickoff, or I'm talking to Pete, getting ready for the punt, talking about what we're going to do. So I didn't say anything to him. Dow may have, but, Spencer's a competitor, but he certainly needs to, one, get first downs for us when he runs, but then also make sure he's being smart and not taking unnecessary hits too.
Coach, you just shared your message from last week before the Tennessee game. Although this game is placed in a different part of the schedule, but given the schedule after your bye week, I'm curious, is your message the same, a sense of urgency?
Just regular week. We don't talk about – the only thing we've talked about beyond this week is just letting the players know what the schedule is going to be during the open week. So they can plan if they want to go home for a few days. We mentioned it Sunday and for about 20 seconds in the team meeting, and that's all we've talked about beyond this week. That's all we've talked about beyond the week at hand ever. We don't sit in there before the season and talk about the schedule, and we don't sit in there right now and talk about the schedule. Look, you play in the toughest conference in America. You know that there's no weeks off. There's no breathers ever in this league. We know the non-conference game at the end of the season as well. We're all aware of that. But honestly, for us, it's, let's try and each week to try and be better than we were the week before. And then we'll look up on Saturday and see what happened, and then come right back in here on Sunday and get ready for the next one. And that's what we always do.
Yeah, Shane, you've obviously, going back to Spencer, you've known Spencer for several years now. Would you say this is the most comfortable and the most fun that he's having since you've been around him? And if so, why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, I would think so. The first year we were together, he was young. We were at Oklahoma. He was the backup quarterback to Jalen Hurts. Jalen was the starter. We were winning football games. We won the Big 12, played in the college football playoff. Against LSU and Joe Burrow, and then he came in a little bit at the end of that game and played, but he wasn't in the starter's role. The next year, we've talked about it before, he takes over as the starter, and we faced a little bit of adversity to start the season. We dropped our first two games that year to Iowa, our first two Big 12 games to Iowa State and Kansas State, and then saw him rebound from that, and then we went and won the Big 12 championship. For sure. That was a fun year, but that was also the COVID year, so there was only so much fun you could be having during that. 21, I wasn't with him, but I can't imagine it was a ton of fun because that's when he lost his starting job. 22 came in here last year and did some really good things, but certainly he'll be the first to tell you it was a little bit up and down. And then this year, obviously, he's playing really, really great right now, and hopefully he will continue to have fun because he is having fun. And then the reason for that, I just think it's the relationship with Dow. That's big. And then just his understanding, I think, of just everything going on. He has a better understanding and familiarity with the system, even though there is some changes from last year, the people in this program, how we do things. He's just he's matured, he's grown up, he's older, and he's playing great. And like I said, there's not another quarterback in the country that I would trade him for at this point.
We talked about it with some of the players, but how relaxing or comforting it is for you as a head coach to know that a lot of these younger guys that are taking snaps consistently have been in a hostile environment, like in Charlotte, like in Athens, going into Knoxville, where it's going to be just as chaotic and hostile. Yeah,
it certainly helps. We talked about it this morning. I mean, we're battle tested in a lot of ways, if you will. I mean, you've just the environments we've been in. Charlotte was electric, like you said. Athens was rocking. Like you would expect, and then the teams that we've played. We've played the teams we've played have 3 losses between them, I guess, and South Carolina gave those teams 2 of those losses. So North Carolina's undefeated, Georgia's undefeated. Furman has lost once, and that was to us, I believe. I don't think they've lost since we've played them. And then Mississippi State has lost to us and LSU. So we've played some really good teams, so we're battle tested, and we knew the opening month was going to be really, really tough. Tennessee's ranked, so you're going to finish this month out playing 3, 4 if you count Furman, who I think is 6th this week in the FCS poll, 4 ranked teams in the month of September. So our guys have certainly been thrown to the fire, and they're still young, so it's not like we say, all right, everything's good, but there is a sense of, all right, they've experienced a lot already in a short period of time. We have been in a stadium that was really, really loud against Georgia. I'm well aware that this Saturday is going to be really, really loud on Saturday night in Knoxville. But it helps that it's not the first time that those young guys have been in an environment like that, without a doubt.
Hey, Shane, I know in the past when you've been talking about how hard Xavier works, you've mentioned to us how his GPS clockings and practice and things. Did you guys get an official reading on that cross that he took to the house on Saturday?
Are you referring to what was on Twitter? Because I saw Twitter, X, whatever it's called now.
Is that official?
Well, we had him it's funny, he actually went over 21 miles an hour twice on Saturday night. So he had that touchdown, we had him at like 21.7 or something. And I think I saw the thing on social media that had him in the 22. So we went ahead and said, okay, we'll give you the 22 on that one. If they say you had 22, you had 22. I'm not going to fight it. But then he also hit over 21 miles an hour in the third quarter, which I'm assuming is on the touchdown catch to begin the third quarter, although he was smoking downfield on a couple of those punts as well. So it's pretty remarkable for him to go over 21 miles an hour twice in the game on Saturday night. So yeah, he was rolling on Saturday, and we always put those speeds up periodically in the team meeting for our guys to see who did what.
Shane, you mentioned the intimidating atmospheres. Do those environments, that atmosphere, does it become even tougher to play as an opposing team at night because the fans, they have a little bit longer to prepare, and just it seems like there's more excitement with the night game?
No, I think there is, and I think there's a direct correlation to the amount of tailgating that's able to take place before the game as well. But I did see Coach Stoops' comments about Kentucky having a noon game, and don't underestimate the Kentucky fans' ability to pound a bunch of beers in the morning before a noon kickoff. So game time does matter. That gives them all day to get ready. I think we've seen, Rick, just with the environment in our own stadium, what it can be at night on the road in this league as well. But we know I've been into Knoxville when I was 2 years ago, we went up there at noon, and it was rocking. When I was at Georgia, we went up there, and it was a 3:30 game in 2017, and it was rocking. And now I know I've been there at night back in 2009 when we played them when I was here. I know that was a night game on Halloween night, and it was rocking, and I know that Saturday night will be rocking. But certainly, yeah, when you have all day to tailgate, they can get a little rowdy, but I know we'll have a ton of garnet and black in that stadium on Saturday night up in Knoxville as well. So it gives our fans all day long to prepare and get ready also for what should be a great environment. Thank you, Coach. Thank y'all.